get my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most awesomest homesteading channel on the entire planet that has nothing whatsoever to do with homesteading off the grid. So what does today's video have to do with? Several things. Stories, just a mention of them, labels, and one of the craziest things I've ever heard. Now, it ended well. I had a conversation this week that started out as pure idiocy, sheer idiocy. It was with a doctor at the VA. Vets, and I don't have to tell you. Maybe I'll open some eyes among the civilian sector who have no clue. The people who watch the politicians speak on the left and the right, both parties. Well, I did this for veterans, or I'm going to do this for veterans. Everybody stands up and clears or cheers. No, you don't do anything for veterans. You might put something in law or make it look like there's these new benefits or something, but then when the veteran goes to the VA, deny, and delay, deny, and hope that I die. That continues to be the VA's mantra. But let's start out first. We are not alone in this creepy forest. Hearing footsteps, so get my 6. Means watch behind me, because you never know who or what may or may not show up in the backdrop behind me. You probably know True Hauntings Volume 5 is out, available on Amazon and print or Kindle. These are 90% of these stories are submitted from the viewers of this channel. Yes, I have received the stories that keep coming in over the last couple of weeks since this edition was printed. I will compile them and we'll have a volume 6 once we have enough stories collected. These are 40,000 word length short story collections. It takes 40,000 words to be considered a novel. So we wait until we have 40,000 words. It's, a few dozen stories, 50 stories, so that you're actually getting some meat with your potatoes, and then we release them. So people have asked, am I going to come out here in October and tell creepy stories? Absolutely. So that's why I haven't read some of the newer stories that some of our regular contributors have been submitting. We've got some stories from some first-time contributors, thanks to all. And it's not that I'm ignoring those stories, because I haven't. I'm getting the emails. I'm just saving them for October, which will be here soon. I noticed this morning while having coffee up here at my campground, watching the sun come up over the horizon. It was like 6 something. I love getting up early and just watching the day begin. But when it was light enough to see after the sun had come up, I noticed that there's already a bunch of maple leaves on some trees up here turning red. Some are orange. So anyway, there will be stories in October. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and tell you the ridiculousness of the conversation I had. And again, it did end up ending well. And then I'm going to talk about labels. I live streamed the other night. You might have caught that, and I'm going to kind of condense what I said there, because I think it will help a lot of you understand who you are more, and why things were done to you by the system. So, VA thing. I am getting older. I'm 50 now. Aging is a concern of mine. I'm doing my best to do it the best that I can. Completely active lifestyle, daily exercise, proper nutrition. I don't eat junk food, limited alcohol consumption, and frequency. Watch the frequency of that as well. So as we age, for most of us, as healthy as you are, as active as your lifestyle is, things do wear out. And I'm preaching to the choir. 74% of you are my age or older. You incur more healthcare costs. Now, I'm going to say some things here that most of you will disagree with, okay? But these are facts. Number one, there are certain income levels and asset class, people who live within certain asset classes, who are better off self-insuring, which means paying their own medical bills when they have a medical situation arise, than to pay health insurance premiums. Okay, let's say you don't get health insurance through a provider, through a job, like me. If you're an independent contractor, an entrepreneur, a small business owner, and you're not married to somebody a spouse that gets it from work, you have to really look at the numbers. And I'm going to use an example here. We've been in the U.S. almost 10 years. If we were to have health insurance, we would pay $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year times 10 years, almost. I'm rounding up slightly because we've been here almost 9 years. Just to make the math simple, it's $250,000. Since we've been here, we have self-insured. We go to the doctor as regularly as needed. We have annual exams from a private doctor who's a wonderful man. We have had medical emergencies. I was in the hospital for 2 nights and 3 days with a gut twist. I paid for that out of pocket because the VA, of course, denied the payment, even though it was service-connected issue. My son had oral surgery. He had a bunch of teeth that were, and this was when he was young, like first grade, that were just deteriorated. He had weak teeth, weak baby teeth, and we had to have oral surgery. Had to have 9 of them removed. But so when we need health care, we get it. My wife's been to the doctor a couple of times. She got poison ivy her first year here. Her eyes swelled shut because her body had no natural immunity to it because there's no poison ivy in the Philippines where she's from. When I go over there, I get sick over there from stuff that doesn't bother her or my son or any of the locals. I went to the doctor 3 times this past winter when I was over there. Paid for that. But anyway, here's the math. We've paid a grand total of $12,000 US dollars out of pocket for all of our medical expenses in the time that we've been here. So 12,000, 240,000 minus 12 is 228 in our favor. Is that math right? Or 238. We've saved $238,000. We bought our house and property, which is almost worth $1 million now. We're about 18 months away from being worth $1 million, for $269,000. So pretty much we've almost purchased our home and property in what we didn't give in health insurance premiums, by way of what I do consider to be the biggest form of legalized fraud known to man, the health insurance industry, combined with their incestual relationship they have with the healthcare industry and the pharmaceutical industry. So anyway, what happens if you get cancer? Well, we'll pay for it. You can afford, yeah, you can. We can afford to get cancer. Now, that's number one. Number two, we won't have it treated here. We'll go to the Philippines and have it treated there, where we can do it for a fraction. I mean, just to give you an example, and this is part of the story. When we were over there this winter, like when we go, we make a list. Okay, what healthcare things can we get done over there? One of them for me was my eyeglasses. I had the cheap old reading glasses because my vision started, clouding up there a few years back when I turned 45. This is a $600 pair of glasses, designer glasses. If I were to purchase them in the U.S., go to an optometrist, have the test, all this stuff. Got them in the Philippines for $64. I went to a dentist, as did my wife and our son. And, we treated some of the family over there to some dental work that they needed. They desperately needed it. I got x-rays, a cleaning, and 2 fillings. Cost me $96. Sounds like a door to like a portal is opening. Perhaps it's the veil, opening, and we're being joined by others. So continue to get my 6. So anyway, that would have cost $4,000 if I would have done that in the U.S. Now, so that's just how we do it. But I'm in defense mode now because I am in my 50s. I've entered my high income earning years. And I know at this point, I know that over the next 15 years, I'll make more money than I made my entire working career up until this point. That's just how it goes. I used to be a financial planner. I know how this stuff works. This works for everybody like this, except say for deadbeats who don't work. Okay. If you don't work, of course you're not going to earn more money in the last 15 years of your working career than you did in the 25 before that, because you don't have a working career. You know what I mean? But I'm not a deadbeat. I'm not a deadbeat by any means. So, I wanted to get in defensive mode. And defensive mode means many things. It means telling people no. Just, when people need help. It's funny, when it's time to borrow, it's a life and death emergency. But when it's time to pay it back, it's hide and seek. You know what I mean? And I could risk never getting any money that I might have, lent somebody in need 10 years ago. I can't now because I don't have the time to make it back. So it's very important as we age to just tell people no. Tell them no. My responsibility is me and my wife and our son, and that's it. And if it's anybody outside of that circle, no. And I'm not sorry. No apology is necessary. So you start watching your finances more. Even though you're making a crap ton more money, you make sure that you're not pissing it away on stupid stuff, which we've never done anyway. We're not materialistic. You want to watch the taxation of your investments. I used to trade stocks for fun, and sometimes I'd rack up huge capital gains consequences for that because I was doing it outside of an IRA and a taxable account. No more of that. I still trade, but it's inside my traditional IRA where I get tax deductions for any, and I need those. I know a Roth, the money grows tax-free, but I'm in the absolute highest tax bracket, so I need the tax deduction more than I need the tax-free growth. Stuff like this, financial planning. Let me just be kind of vague. Financial planning. You don't buy real estate investment trust because the dividends are 16%. Wahoo! Because it's taxed as income rather than the 15%, say like a tobacco stock or a traditional blue chip. And you guys know all this stuff, so I'm going to skip these details. So anyway, part of my defensive strategy with healthcare at least was, I am a veteran. I do have a disability rating. It's not 100% and it never will be because I can earn. Basically, if you exhibit the ability to earn, you're never going to get 100%. And I'm fine with that because I have no problem earning. But I had been not kicked out of the VA system. Here's how it works. If you're a disabled veteran, you've got a disability rating. If you don't go to regular appointments at the VA, you'll fall through the cracks. You'll get kicked out of the computer system. And that's what happened to me. That's why they wouldn't pay for my gut twist issue. And let me show you as far as fraud goes. That hospital bill was $12,000. And they said, who's your insurer? I said, the VA. They said, all right, let us send this to the VA. Came back in the room 20 minutes later and said, the VA refuses to pay this. So the first thing we're going to do is cut the bill in half. So my $12,000 hospital bill became a $6,000 hospital bill. And then they said, can you make payments of $221 a month for the next 5 years? I'm like, yeah. And then she left the room. Well, I could have written it. Well, who writes checks anymore? I could have given her my debit card and paid it out of my checking account. We made payments for a few months and I got tired of the payments. I don't like payments. So I just went ahead and paid the balance off in full. My son's oral surgery. First two oral surgeons we saw gave us a quote of $6,000. And when they found out I would be paying out of pocket, they refused treatment. They said they don't provide treatment or services to people who don't have health insurance. And we needed to be more responsible and blah, 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 and get health insurance and blah, blah, blah. So we found a third oral surgeon who, guess what, was a veteran from the war in Afghanistan. He was a captain in the Army. He's an oral surgeon, and he was over there doing reconstructive stuff to guys that were getting hurt. He says, you know what, this oral surgery costs $2,000 to do. I'll do it. He says, basically, I'm not making any money, but you're a veteran, because we talked, we built that rapport. I said $2,000. What about the other two guys that said $6,000 and then they refused the service? He rolled his eyes. He said, they're greedy pigs, man. He says, if you had health insurance, that's what they would pay for this. But I can do it for $2,000. He's going to be in here and out of here in less than an hour. And so I can make $4,000 an hour in profits. He says, I'm not going to make nothing. I can do it for $2,000. That includes anesthesia, paying his assistants. So that's how we did it. He says, I just ask that you pay me in advance. I'm like, you take debit cards? So we paid in advance that day, scheduled the appointment to come back next week. 2 weeks later, that doctor, that oral surgeon, mailed us a check for $175 as a rebate with a little note that said, I didn't need as much anesthesia as I thought I would, so I didn't want to overcharge you. So we got it done for like $1,825. And that's an example of how the fraud, it's like a Ponzi scheme. So they guilt shame everybody into thinking, oh, you got to spend as much money on health insurance premiums that you would spend to buy a house and a 6-acre property in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Otherwise, you're going to get this brain-eating amoeba and die, and no one will treat you because you don't have insurance. And the sheep will believe it. They believe it. Well, we don't. And we don't conduct ourselves that way. But again, back to the VA. If you don't go to a VA appointment, like at least twice a year, they will kick you out of the system, and then they'll deny you treatment. They'll deny to pay for your treatment if you get it in the private sector, in the civilian sector, and they will attempt to take any benefits you have away from you. And this happened to me about 3 years ago. I've shared this story before. I alluded to it the other day, but I skipped talking about it. But I'm going to mention it briefly here so you'll know what's going on, because they just tried it again. And I called them on their crap this time. Sadly, you can't be honest with VA providers in regard to how well you're doing. I'm doing exceptionally well. I do not view myself as a disabled person. I do not view it as if I have disabilities. I view it as if I've got challenges put in front of me as a direct result of my time in service, my deployment to Mosul, Iraq, where I spent time as a machine gunner for convoy security, running the main supply line for the northern region of that country during Operation Enduring Freedom, OEF. Yeah, it is what it is. But I don't view it as if these things disable me. I viewed it as if I had to learn to redo things in a different way. And I pride myself on having done that. Now, it's not always a pretty way. There are days when, yeah, I isolate. I don't want to be around people, so I don't leave the property. Oh, what a shame. I've only got a 6-hour playground for an outdoor guy like me to just hang out on. But it gives me my peace, keeps me away from toxic people, crowds. So anyway, I hadn't been to the VA for a number of years, and that's why they denied paying for the gut twist. And what's that have to do with my time in Iraq? I had surgery in my groin area, and the gut twisted as a result of scar tissue that had built up in that area as a result of that surgery. And the doctor told me, the private sector doctor told me, this will happen again, and at some point we're probably going to have to cut that part of you out. So what we want to do is, through fitness and through diet and through consciousness, put that off as long as we can. And so I do that. I do eat red meat. I eat venison. Rarely do I eat beef because it just takes so long to digest. It's hard on the intestines. And gee, guess what? My venison doesn't have any chemicals in it. No steroids, no nothing. There's never been a recall on venison. Think about that. So anyway, I'm looking for venison and potentially Bigfoot Sasquatch. So I mentioned this in a video a few days ago. I spoke with a woman last week who's a psychiatrist, not my psychiatrist, but a psychiatrist. And it's a small world. And part of this story is going to show you how it's even smaller than this. She used to work for the VA. And she now works for an organization that represents veterans who are trying to either obtain VA benefits or keep the ones they already have. She told me this is what the VA doctors and healthcare providers are trained to do. They are trained to reduce with the ultimate goal of completely eliminating any benefits you have through the VA. Yeah, so if you go in there, you're not allowed to tell them you're doing great. If they say, hey, how are you today? You say, oh, I'm great. How are you? You might be in there for, a knee injury. Maybe you injured your knee, excessive marching, in the military, whatever, jumping out of airplanes like I did, airborne school. So you're there to see your knee, but they'll look at it. They see everything about you, and they see where you've got your disability ratings. And let's say you're rated for PTSD. And, they'll put a note there. I do not believe the veteran has PTSD because he or she claimed that they were doing great. They were smiling, seemed happy and positive and upbeat. I recommend either reducing or eliminating this veteran's rating for post-traumatic stress. And it happens. They take veterans' benefits away from them just because they go in the door, and when they're asked how they're doing, they say they're doing great. I almost found this out the hard way a few years ago. I had not been to the VA for a few years, and they sent me this thing. I had this scheduled appointment for it's called I think a CNP exam, claims and something, or PNC. I don't know the lingo, the terminology. When I get sick, I go to a private doctor. I gladly pay out of pocket because I don't want to wait 6 weeks to get into the VA. It used to be a year. Literally, when I came home from Iraq, it took a year to be seen by the VA. Sounds like tree knocks, doesn't it? All right. So anyway, they sent me this thing. Hey, come in. We just want to make sure you're doing okay. We haven't seen you in a while. And I thought, oh, how wonderful. So I go in, and this doctor basically just lures me into these traps. How you doing? Oh, I'm great. He's like, oh, I see you got this chronically inflamed lower lumbar. It was from being strapped down into the turret for a year as a machine gunner on top of the truck. That pressure like fused my lower lumbar. He goes, how's that? He says, I don't see a cane. You don't walk with a cane? I'm like, no, I don't walk with a cane. He says, well, why not? If you have this, aren't you in pain? I said, I do have pain. And I told him the truth. I said, if I exercise, I have less pain. If I do nothing, if I don't exercise, yeah, I'd be one of those fat bastards with a cane and the black hat that says whatever I was in. But I don't want to be that guy. I want to continue to live my life. So I've kind of found the proper mixture of exercise and activity combined with diet that allows me to live with as little amount of pain as possible, so where I can still pretty much do whatever I want. And what gets me is bending. I have to watch bending. I can lift heavy weight. I can run. I can bike. If the running starts hurting the back, I'll jump over to the mountain bike and leave the running for a while. But if I'm constantly bending and picking stuff up, that really gets it, because that part of my body just has difficulty doing what it did without difficulty before the war. Okay. So, because I want to be Mr. Good News, Mr. Upbeat. That's who I am. That's why so many of you watch these videos. I'm not some guy that doesn't have any problems. I'm a guy who has had a lot of problems and has figured out how to overcome those problems. And I come out here and I share it with complete strangers on the internet. Yeah. So anyway, trigger warning. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. It's iced pumpkin flavored Starbucks. Fall Harvest, I think they call it. Yeah, there are viewers that actually complain in the comments section about me drinking coffee. They say I should do it on my time, not theirs. This is my time, bro. It's my channel. Get over yourself. So anyway, this doctor that I saw that day writes up this recommendation to the VA, Veterans Administration, saying, I totally recommend we take away all benefits from Veteran Lake. That's me. He's happy, he's upbeat, he's positive. He clearly does not have PTSD, for which he's received a rating. He exercises, he splits and stacks his own firewood by bending with the legs, not at the back. So clearly his lower back injury has healed itself and it's not an issue anymore. I recommend we give this VA this veteran a 0% rating and let him seek his health care in the private sector, civilian sector. I got that, and I'm like, WTF? Well, my wife lost her crap, because you get like a 28-day period where you can like rebuttal that. You can give a response and say, you either agree with this, or you say, well, I disagree with this. She goes, write up a response. You're a writer, you know what to say. I said, I'm not wasting my time responding to this. She says, why not? I said, 2 reasons. Number 1, it's the government. They're going to do whatever the hell they decide to do. They don't care about what my rebuttal is. Number 2, I said, we don't need the money. It's a piddly amount monthly. It is tax-free, and that's nice. And trust me, we end up sending the government back multiple times how much they give me in VA disability through income taxes. We pay more income taxes every year than the average household in America earns total. And that's because we're high income earners. So I said, when I first started receiving these benefits, I needed them. I was a hot mess. I was addicted to 8 different medications the VA and the Army had me on. I couldn't get a job because it was during the Great Recession. And then I was down and out in the Philippines for 4 years. And I told her, as you know, if we didn't have that little bit of money coming in from the VA, we would have starved. But it helped me until I could help myself. It allowed us to keep a roof over our head, feed our baby, feed ourselves most of the time, until I could make it in social media. starting out by writing books, not just this is relatively new over the last couple of years, but full-length novels I wrote, writing, being a contributor for some mainstream yucky media organizations as a Veterans Affairs correspondent, which of course led to the winning of International Journalism Awards, which put me on the radar. People started buying the books. I got jobs in social media. Fast forward 10 years later, here we are with one hell of a tax problem, living on a paradise property in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. I said, so if they want to take this little bit of money away from me and give it to a recently disabled veteran who's in the same situation now that I was in back in 2009 when I got back from Iraq, I would rather that veteran have that money because I simply don't need it. And she disagreed with all that and told me, she wanted, I'm like, whatever. I did not rebuttal. I did not do anything. I just figured, well, okay, they're going to make their decision in 30 days once they haven't heard from me. And within 30 days from that, I'm going to get this letter in the mail from the VA saying, hey, sorry, not sorry, but you don't get any more benefits. Well, the letter came, and that's not what it said. That's not even close to what it said. I was kind of floored. It was a letter from the full bird colonel overseeing my case, admonishing the doctor at the VA who recommended that I have all of my benefits taken away from me. He pretty much said, in essence, this disabled veteran sets the benchmark for what all disabled veterans should strive for. He doesn't use his disabilities for gain. He has overcome them, and he said everything I just told you. It's like he viewed them as a challenge. He figured out how to overcome them, live around these issues, and he's doing well. And the last thing we should do is punish him for succeeding by taking away his VA benefits. So I got to keep them. Yeah, I was really shocked. So anyway, I know this is how they work. And then I talked to that woman last week, and I just ironically happened to be having a VA appointment yesterday because I want to make sure, now that I'm in defense mode, now that I'm aging, just to have that backup. If something terrible were to happen to me and I didn't have time, or I didn't have the ability to jump on a plane and fly to the Philippines to get affordable health care, I could go to the VA, hopefully, knock on woods. So I'm in there for this appointment. Let me get to it. And the VA doctor comes in. I'm telling you, it's a small world. She was an Asian woman. She was wearing a COVID mask. And her last name was a very common Chinese surname. I've been to China several times. So no delusional people. I'm not stereotyping. I know I'm speaking from facts here and personal experience. So her surname was Chinese. She comes in. She's wearing a mask. So I can't see her from here down. And so she's talking. And first thing she says, "How are you today?" And I said, "I'm terrible." She says, "Terrible? Why are you terrible?" I said, "Because I'm disabled and it sucks." Now, I'm only saying this because I know I have to say this or she's going to put in her notes, take everything away from me, right? When I talk to my doctor in the private sector, I'll tell him, "Hey, I'm great, man. If I would have been with him, I was doing great, man. I had a wonderful 3-mile run this morning, ran the last mile in 6.5 minutes, and I'm 50 years old, Got a buddy, and I hope he's not watching this. I'm not trying to diss on him, but he's 50. My oldest childhood friend. Last week, he was at the orthopedic place for his hip arthritis. That very day, I ran a sub 6-minute mile at the end of a workout. We're both 50. What's the difference? Lifestyle. I know his lifestyle, and I know mine. Okay, lifestyle. He's got a sister just a few years younger than us. She's one of those yoga queens. She's active. He's not. Okay, so it's not genetics. It's effort. It's work. It's decisions. It's actions based upon the choices we make. Brah. So anyway, she goes, "You're disabled?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You do not look disabled. Where is your cane? Where is your wheelchair? Can you walk?" I said, "You know where we are, right?" She goes, "What do you mean I know where we are?" I said, "We're at the Veterans Administration's hospital, like outpatient medical clinic. I am a disabled veteran, and you are a doctor who provides medical service and healthcare services for disabled veterans. That's why we're here. You understand that, right?" And she was just staring at me like she was shocked. And I said, "You know, not all wounds are visible, right?" And she's like, and what she was having one of those old crap moments. I'm not going to be able to. So anyway, she starts asking me these questions, and she's trying to lead me down that trail to get me to say something that would allow her to write. Like she asked something, and so I answered it honestly. She goes, "Oh, so this is pre-existing condition." I said, "No, stop writing right now. This is not a pre-existing condition." And I explained to her how this condition was a direct result of my time in service on my deployment in Iraq. And she's like, so she was trying to be a hard case, but by this time I'd figured out her accent. I could tell she was from the Philippines. I could tell she was from Luzon. I could tell she was from Manila, and I could tell she was from Makati City, because I lived there for 6 months. And yeah, I'm hyper vigilant, and I spot details most people miss. And I knew she still had her accent. I'm not making fun of how she talks. This was her accent. I'm doing my best to mimic it. And she sounded just like my wife. And I said, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. And I said this because I don't know how long she's been in America. I don't know how long. I don't know if she's been here long enough to become super sensitive like most Americans, to where she would be offended by pretty much anything, but especially if I asked her about her ethnicity or nationality, because only in America do people give a crap about that. You go outside of America and you say to someone, "Are you from Pakistan?" And if they're from Pakistan, "Yeah, I'm from Pakistan," they'll tell you. They don't care. But if they're not, let's say they're from Morocco, they say, "No, I'm from Morocco." They don't care. Only in America, and I've had this conversation with multiple immigrants who are in America, only in America does everybody go around calling everybody else racist. You don't see it anywhere else. You don't see the super sensitivity. So I said to her, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. And the only reason I ask is because my wife's a Filipina. And I've spent a sum total of about 8 years living in the Philippines. But are you Filipina? And she looks over at me, and of course she has the mask on, but then her eyes just do this. I could tell she was smiling under that mask. And I said, "Well, the name threw me. That's Chinese in origin. And I can't see if you got one of those cute little noses." And she started laughing and laughing, and she says, "Oh my God, your wife is Filipina." And I'm recording with my phone now, so I picked my phone up and I went like that to turn it on, and there's a picture of me and my wife at a UVA football game. I said, "Yeah, here's my wife." She's like, "Oh, she's beautiful. Where's she from?" I said, "Mindanao, down in Davao City." She's like, "Oh my God, you lived in Mindanao?" I've never been to Mindanao. People in Luzon are afraid to go to Mindanao because that's where all the terrorist organizations are, the Communist Party, the MPA, National Filipino Communists, whoever. Oh, the kidnappings, the murders. I mean, it's like, I call it the fourth world. It's the third world of the third world. So anyway, we build a rapport. I ask her, "Where are you from, Makati City?" She goes, "Yes, how'd you know?" I said, "Because I lived there for 6 months. I know that's where all the rich people are." She goes, "What makes you think I'm rich?" I said, "Okay, Chinese surname, you're a doctor. I'd be willing to bet your parents are both doctors from China." She says, "Yeah, they were in Manila working at the hospital. That's where she was born and raised." She's a little bit older than me. So ethnically, she's Chinese, but nationality, she's Filipina. She's never been to China, not even through the airport. She says she hates China. She will not go there. So even when she goes back and forth to the Philippines, in the U.S., she makes sure she doesn't even get routed through China. So anyway, she opens up. The hard shell has been cracked. She stops trying to lead me down this road of pre-existing conditions. And it's funny because at one point, and that's where this comes up again, the story about dental work, and I wear eyeglasses, and that if I get cancer, I'll just listen. My grandfather in the Philippines is Lolo, who the guy that gave me the sword, the bayonet, that his great Spanish grandfather gave him. His okay, so my Filipino grandfather's great Spanish grandfather was a Spanish conquistador, however you say it. He was actually a soldier in the Spanish army during the occupation of the Philippines, their 433-year occupation. And this machete that Lolo gave me for Christmas, so that my son Daniel, it's actually Daniel's, it's in good holding for me. Daniel will be the 10th generation in our family to hold that. So Lolo had throat cancer. Last year, he spent 6 months in the hospital. He was treated, and it's in remission for less than $10,000 US. Even if he were in America and he had the best health insurance possible, the minute they stopped paying for his services and the healthcare needs he needed associated with that throat cancer, you know what they would have done? They would have let him die. Because once they weren't getting that money anymore from the health insurer. They just let you die. That's what they do. So he's great. He's doing great. So we talked about this. But before I'd cracked that hard shell, because she asked me, one of the questions was, what is your outside healthcare provider? Because I'm not 100% VA disabled, and if I have a problem that is not associated with my time in service, the VA won't pay it. So I told her I self-insure, and she said, what's that mean? And I explained to her what I explained to you about how I just pay out of pocket. She goes, oh, it is much more expensive if you do that. You must have health insurance. I said, no, it's not. I said, you find an honest doctor, you find some honest healthcare providers, and there's still a bunch of them out there. You get everything done for like 10% of what they'd charge you if you had health insurance. She goes, no, I do not know where you hear this. This is crazy. This is crazy. So anyway, once she opened up and we started talking about this, I told her about my glasses and the dental work. She goes, oh, I'm the same. It is so expensive here. She goes, I had to have a colonoscopy 2 years ago, and I happened to be going back to the Philippines. She said, I had my colonoscopy in the Philippines because I had it done for $200, and they wanted to charge me $3,000 for it here because I don't have health insurance. And if I had, they would have charged me $9,000. And I said, well, doc, well. And she was like, cut me. You know what she said? She says, I am a doctor, so there are things I must say. I am a doctor. There are things I must say. I said, I know. You must lie. I know how it works, okay? I'm not an idiot. I wouldn't be where I am today if I was, okay? So, a lot of people, well, this guy's an idiot. Goes around the woods looking for Bigfoot. I got a neighbor that tells me I'm nothing but a dumb hillbilly from West Virginia because of where I grew up. I make more money in a month than he makes in a year. And let me tell you, it's not because I'm an idiot. But hey, at least he's not from West Virginia, right? Some of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life are from West Virginia, to include his dead in-laws who bankrolled him because he was a deadbeat and wouldn't work. Never met him, though. I'm sure they were wonderful people. Good folks, I'll tell you. Let me tell you, some of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life are people who have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, people who have gotten out there and got their hands dirty working, people who went through hardships and didn't have trust funds or government assistance to lean on to get them through those hard times. They got themselves through those hard times. And with all this said, I'm going to transition now to labels. This is what I spoke about the other night during my live stream, and I pretty much told the story I wanted to tell about the healthcare fraud industry and my experience with the VA. But let me tell you this, even though that Filipino doctor and myself built that report, we were speaking in Tagalog. I was talking to her in Tagalog. I was teaching her words in Visayan. We were talking about certain places over there where we've both been, like Palawan, where we went this winter, those beautiful white sandy beaches, spent a week there. A place called El Nido, #1 hot spot in the Philippines. But she will still, I guarantee it, and I told my wife this, when she sat down at that computer after I left, I guarantee you she wrote her recommendation to take all of my benefits away from me. Everything I said, I know she'll use against me because she's a puppet for the VA. That's just how it goes. I wouldn't be surprised if the medical providers there don't get kickbacks and bonuses every time they are successful in getting a veteran's VA benefits reduced. Wouldn't surprise me a bit. All right, moving on. Labels. So my beautiful bride Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, spent this past weekend at Virginia Beach with a bunch of her friends, Filipino friends. A couple of the husbands went, some of their kids went. Daniel and I stayed here alone. We had some football stuff going on we had to deal with. You know, he's the quarterback, I'm the coach. We had to be there. And we enjoyed father and son time. We went into town one of the 2 days and spent like 4 hours just, you know, we went out and ate lunch somewhere, took him to the UVA bookstore and bought him a really nice like jacket for fall, UVA jacket. Took him to get his hair cut. It was great. We ran into one of my old football players I coached from flag football that's in there, and his father. It was just a great time. Made sure to stop off at the grocery store to get plenty of junk food for him for that night. But we stayed up late. Daniel plays guitar. He homeschools, by the way, because that public school system is what prepares people to be sheep, to go get that job they hate that makes them miserable, but do it for 40 years because, hey, that's just how it goes. And they give you that health insurance so that they'll terrify you from quitting. Wait, you hate this job? It makes you miserable? Oh, you better not quit because of suffering and death. No health insurance, right? So people will stay in places they hate because of suffering and death. rather than exercising, healthy diet, paying out of pocket, whatever. Oh, it makes my head hurt when I think about the system and how so many people buy into it. 97%, brah. Okay, so my son was playing guitar that night. We'd alternate between watching like a song we liked on YouTube, and then he'd play his guitar. And he uses YouTube a lot to learn how to play songs he likes, songs I like. So we're watching songs, and he'd say, oh, I can play that. And he'd go get his electric guitar, and he'd play it. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, I didn't know he knew how to play that song. So then we'd watch another song. He goes, I can play that. And he'd go over and play it. I said, when did you take the time to learn to play these songs? And he's like, just now. I'm like, what do you mean just now? He goes, well, I hear it and I play it. So this kid's playing by ear. And he was working on one song, and there was a certain chord progression that he said to me, he said, this is the most uncomfortable finger position I've ever tried to play on the guitar. And I said, I couldn't do it the way his fingers were bunching up. He goes, it'd be easier to do it like this. And he turned his hand like this and held the fret bar upside down to make it easier to hold down those strings and those frets and played the same chord. I said, well, can you do that while you're playing that song without missing a beat? He goes, sure, watch. He's like, never missed a beat. And that was amazing. And I had this big aha moment when that happened. Number one, again, I'm so thankful I don't send him to the public school. Why? Because when they teach you how to do stuff, everybody must learn how to do it the same way. Here's where we want you to be. Everybody has to do it the exact same way. And if some of you kids are pretty quick at getting there, we're not going to let you move forward. We're going to hold you back until the ones that are slower than you catch up. It disgusts me, okay? So I was outside. After he went to bed, I was outside. It was like midnight. I was looking up at these beautiful stars. And you know who I thought of? I thought of every adult out there right now who was given a label in the public schools because, sure, they could do it if they were allowed to do it this way, and this is just an example, but when they went this way, ruler on the wrist, or no, you can't do that, or oh yeah, it sounds just like it, but guess what? You didn't do it the way everybody else did, so you get an F. How many of those people were labeled learning disabled? Slow learner. We've all heard the story. Thomas Edison was sent home in grade school with a note from his teacher that said, please do not allow your son to return to school because he does not have the ability to learn. Thought Thomas Edison was stupid. He went on to invent the light bulb. How did he do it? When asked, he says, well, what I first had to do was figure out 10,000 ways how not to invent the light bulb. He failed 10,000 times before he succeeded. This is the cream of the crop right here. People who maybe they have to do it differently, but they still figure out how to overcome that hurdle. Instead of not taking care of themselves, eating crap, binge drinking daily, putting on that weight, suffering from their injuries, their disabilities, walking with that cane, riding in a wheelchair because they can't stand up because they're so obese. Those of us who figure out how to live around our issues, live with them, overcome the challenges, we should not be punished. Like the full bird Colonel said, we should be the benchmark. My son should be the benchmark for that example. And how many of you out there are maybe on Social Security, disability, and I'm not judging, but it's because you were convinced at an early age that you were not the same as others, because not because you couldn't do what needed to be done, but because the way you did the thing was different than everybody else. There's nothing slow about you. Actually, there takes a certain level of genius to be able to figure out a different way than the masses, which again, if you take off the M, what do you have? That's what they are. If you are struggling to do something the way everybody else is doing it, but you figure out a way to still succeed and meet that objective by doing it differently with an idea or a way that you came up with, you're not lower IQ, you're probably higher IQ. I forget the actual numbers, but it's like there's over 140 different types of intelligences, and IQ tests, which the public school uses, test 7 of those. So you might suck at those 7, but the other 133, you probably excel. Again, just something else that's wrong with the system. So folks, I might not make videos as regularly as I used to, but as we can see, I clearly make them longer. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump off here and just go do whatever, get some other stuff done, spend time with my family. I wish you all the best. Stay hydrated where you are. Drinking caffeinated drinks in the heat probably isn't the best idea. Drink plenty of water. And hey, listen, there's a beauty in being special. There's a beauty in being different. There's a beauty in being unique. If we were all the same, how boring of a world would that be? So you go out there and you be the best you that you can be. Don't focus on being the best everybody else you can be. Focus on being the best you. That's what I do. And I have to. I must focus on being the best me that I can be because everybody else is already taken. See you for more next time from the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet that has nothing to do with homesteading, but quite a few things to do with life. Homesteading Off the Grid.